Welcome back. Climate Week NYC is in full swing here in New York. It is the largest annual climate event in the U.S., bringing together global leaders across several industries, all with one goal in mind: fighting climate change. That's a huge worry for young people. A survey by the Lancet Planetary Health found that 59% of 16 to 25-year-olds say they're extremely worried about our climate. Experts call this eco-anxiety. They say it's one of the biggest challenges we face today. Climate expert and author Heather White is here to help us maybe make our lives a little bit greener and talk about this. You actually just wrote a book. You have it right there. It is called Eco-Anxiety, just out this week. Talk about why you wanted to write this and what you address in the book.
Well, I was planning on writing this book, Eco-Anxiety, to be released this week, but what I wasn't planning is to have a Category 4 storm barreling towards the southeast. It was really a conversation with my teenagers, even after 20 years of my experience in environmental law and policy, that drew me to start talking about the mental health impacts of climate. Young people, as you said, with that study from the Lancet, are really worried about the future they're inheriting from us. And this book is an invitation for all of us to get involved.
In the book, you focus on helping people discover their service superpower and contribute to the overall climate movement through self-discovery and self-care. Talk more about what you mean there.
You know, Joe, this issue is so overwhelming. I think a lot of people want to get involved, but they're afraid of doing it wrong. They're afraid of being judged. And they're also asking themselves, I skipped the straw, but is that enough? You know, when we have this overwhelming issue, I have an assessment. It's 5 minutes, and it asks, who are you in service? How do you show up for the people you love? And then based on your gifts and service, I then match you to a daily practice of sustainability. And here's what's important, is your daily practice of sustainability can ease your eco-anxiety, bring more joy into your life, and create that culture shift we need for these big policy solutions we've been talking about in Climate Week, for them to work.
You mentioned how overwhelming it feels because you just can't control the climate. So what are some of the small things you recommend people do to feel like they're playing their part?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think understanding you can't do it all and knowing that your individual actions, whether it's calling your member of Congress, whether it's switching to an EV car, whether it's skipping single-use plastic when you can, these little behaviors do add up in that culture shift that we need for these big policy solutions. And most importantly, listening to the young people in your life about this issue, letting them know that they're not alone in climate action. We had the UN Summit of the Future, where young people were saying, we need change and we need it now, letting them know that you're with them and you're going to do all you can to create a healthier, greener, more just future.
You mentioned we are bracing for a hurricane now. We see more hurricanes these days. We see more wildfires these days. That contributes to the anxiety. What do you say to folks to help them deal with some of those feelings that come up during times like this?
Joe, that's such a good question. I think people are feeling three main things. The first is this overwhelm that you just talked about. The second is maybe a denial. Maybe if you're living in Atlanta, for example, there's no way this hurricane could hit me, even though meteorologists are saying be careful. And then I think the third is this sense of helplessness. So the first thing you can do with respect to overwhelm is really rely on trusted news sources with respect to the status of the hurricane and what's to be expected. The second is when it comes to denial, understanding that, like Hugo, we're dealing with a situation where you really do need to understand it could happen to you. This idea of helplessness, the first thing you can do is take action. The Red Cross has been telling all of us for years to have a go kit. Be ready no matter if you live in Montana like I do. Get that go kit ready to evacuate. If you need to evacuate, take it very seriously. But the important part of this book is that this is all about joy. And you can actually have a lot of fun spending time in nature and really making a difference for your community.
I love ending on that point. Heather White, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.